Hi, everyone. It's so great to be here in Canada. I came up from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Woo, Pittsburgh! What's amazing to me is that you guys have more than parties and healthcare. Imagine that. I currently don't have healthcare. Woo! So we'll deal with that when we get back to the States. My name is Sophie Ota. I most recently served as John Fetterman's in his U.S. Senate campaign for Senate in Pennsylvania, the great Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Just a little bit about myself. I've worked on 3 Senate campaigns and 1 presidential primary campaign. I love cats, and I am an American. And I started off my career running youth social for Planned Parenthood. So I've always been really passionate about, creating change and electing progressives to office. So today we're going to talk about digital. And as digital director, I feel like digital is kind of a nebulous term. It means a lot of different things where you go and who you work for. But what I oversaw as digital director for the Fetterman campaign was like 3 large buckets. So we've got our online small dollar fundraising. We raised $48.6 million online. With small dollar donations, our average donation was $29. So that's one big bucket. The second big bucket was our content and creative. So think of all of our social media, our graphic design, our videos, all the content that you see online. And then finally, I oversaw our online organizing program. We had a team of digital organizers. We recruited, by the end of the campaign, over 9,000 volunteers. And these people are really what powered us to victory, not only in our Democratic primary, where we won all 67 Pennsylvania counties, but also in the general, where we defeated our opponent, Dr. Oz. So it seems to me like you guys know who Dr. Oz is, which is good. But today we're going to be talking about John Fetterman's voice and what the voice means in digital communications. So whether that's a candidate or an organization or a think tank, we're going to be talking about the voice. And in my definition, it is not this shitty American show. It is the style and the language that your organization uses to communicate online. And so my challenge as digital director, I came in right when we launched in January 2021. So American campaigns are really long, right? Like I spent the past 2 years of my life electing this guy. And so my challenge as digital director is how do we take this really unique guy and scale it up to the biggest Senate campaign in the country? It wasn't a presidential year. We didn't have a presidential candidate at the top of the ticket. And so this unique guy kind of became the most exciting thing in American politics. And just to illustrate this is a few of my favorite John snapshots. So we've got John in shorts, the day that he met Joe Biden in a blizzard, personal favorite. He also loves Sheetz and Wawa, which are kind of like 2 Tim Hortons-y fast casual restaurants in Pennsylvania. And of course, John loves his dogs and he loves his family. And yeah, he has a really unique voice. Here's one of my favorite tweets from his. This is from before I started. Cowboys have a 99% chance to blow. Cowboys, I can't read it from here, but you get the point. It's how do we go from the candidate, because when I started, John loves Twitter. I'll just back up here. John loves Twitter. He did it all himself. And as a campaign grows, right, you'd hope that your candidate is starting to do call time, is out there talking with unions and different stakeholders. They don't have time to run a digital program. So how do you take what makes him so special and scale it up? It's all about looking for patterns and the type of, the style and the language he uses. And to illustrate that, we're gonna play a really quick game called Who Tweeted That? And it takes some audience interaction, so let's go here. Okay, first one. Sorry, losers and haters, but my IQ is one of the highest, and you all know it. Please don't feel stupid or insecure. It's not your fault. All right, who tweeted this? Who? Yep, you got it. It's Donald Trump. And how did you know that? You can just shout it out. What about this? Yep. Yes. Yes, the terrible grammar, exactly. I like the fact that there's no space after the insecure. There should be a space there. Yeah. So you know it's Donald Trump because of all those different clues. This one might be a little bit harder. I am sad about the passing of Queen Elizabeth II. Had the honor of meeting her, was in long line of people waiting to meet her, yet when she got to me, she asked me pertinent questions and seemed genuinely interested in talking to me. I'm proud she was some kind of emoji. Happy she had a great sense of humor. All right, anyone know who this is? Who? Your kid? No, not your kid. This is superstar Cher. And yeah, if you don't follow Cher on Twitter, I highly recommend it, because all of her tweets are like this, you know? This tweet is so Cher, and I know that because she uses the word two, and the number two instead of two. She uses this like weird emoji. I can't tell if it's like a cow or a bull or something. It's the way that her tweet is kind of broken up like some like weird poem that you wrote in college. It's very, very Cher, and if you don't follow her on Twitter, I highly recommend it. Okay, final little exercise in this game. Who tweeted this? It is exceedingly difficult for a man with 10 houses to fathom how urgent it is to raise America's shitty minimum wage of $7.25 an hour to at least $15 an hour. But for a single mother in PA with 2 kids making a shitty minimum wage of $7.25 an hour, it really matters. Yes, whoa, no way, because I'm giving the presentation. Yes, this is John Fetterman. He tweeted, well, technically my team tweeted this, but yes. And how do we know it's John? For me, what makes this a John tweet is, one, the use of the word shitty. Unlike other American politicians, he was really, upfront with saying whatever he wanted to say. Another key John thing is he loved putting ampersands around words to really emphasize them. So we've got that on the really. He was also really into setting up contrast. So we have the first line is about what's bad, and then the second line is about what's even worse. So as you can see, there's just different stylistic things that my team picked up on and used to bring John's unique voice to every corner of our digital program, to all of the 3 buckets that I mentioned at the top of this presentation. And this is kind of like the thesis of this presentation and of this keynote, is that consistency is the path to authenticity. So no matter what you are trying to communicate about digitally, if you are consistent, it'll really make an impact and really make your candidate seem like they are the real deal across everything. And we're gonna go through some examples of how my team accomplished that. So my number 1 tip is to identify the patterns of style and the way that the candidate communicates. And you're gonna physically write them down and create a style guide. And much like Detective Pikachu over here, you are literally going to put all of these patterns and observations about the way your candidate speaks into a style guide. We literally had a Google Doc, my team, of different things that John said, his favorite emojis, and it was like a quick cheat sheet, a Bible for us all to refer to and be able to, incorporate John's unique style of communicating into everything we did. So what you're gonna wanna look for is grammar and punctuation, favorite emojis. Does your candidate or your organization have any favorite emojis? These are John's favorite emojis, don't really know why. Pop culture references. John loved 90s animation, Simpsons, Family Guy, so we tried to use that in a lot of stuff. common phrases and sayings. One of John's favorite phrases was the union way of life. So we use that in a lot of stuff. Sentence structure. How do they talk? Do they like short sentences, long sentences? Do they ramble? Do they misspell things? And then finally, tone and humor, which played a large role in what we did. John is naturally a very sarcastic and dry guy. I am too, so it worked out really well. And then here are some other examples and ways that you can really deepen your understanding of your candidate's voice. The obvious one is just talk to the candidate. Get to know what their favorite things are. What's their life story? And you're not going to want to ask them straight up, how do you want to sound online? You're going to want to ask them, what's your favorite TV show? What's something that you want people to know about you? Those are the questions you should ask to get at the essence of the person's voice. And if you can't access them, talk to their family. Talk to people who know them well. You can scour old social media posts. That's what I did when I first started working for John, and found some really funny ones, like that one about the Cowboys. Watching old interviews, reading old books, any speeches, op-eds they wrote, and of course, you're going to want to link up with your communications team to ensure that everything that you're putting into your style guide, links up with the overall message of your candidate or campaign or organization. So here is an example of a style guide I used when I worked on Elizabeth Warren's 2020 presidential campaign. So this is just an example of what a style guide can look like. We have things to not say and things to say. One thing that I want to draw attention to is Senator Warren never wanted to refer to her 2020 campaign as my campaign. It was always our campaign, this campaign. And that's just like one single word, right? But changing that word makes all the difference in, how you're talking about something that you're building together. So this kind of sounds maybe like an English class presentation almost, but paying attention to language and style is so important as you're communicating for candidates. Here's another example of a style guide. If anyone's familiar on Twitter, we had a volunteer kind of run a Twitter account in the voice of Levi Fetterman, who is John's dog. So this was a volunteer-led effort, and what we realized is we wanted to send other communications throughout the campaign from this dog. So we worked with our volunteer, Julia, she's lovely, and we came up with a style guide written from a freaking dog, as you can see here. And we sent fundraising solicitations from this dog. We sent voter ID texts from this dog. So it was all very consistent. There are some very specific things here. It's always ILYSM, ILU, never I love you spelled out. So that's another example. All right, so now I'm going to go through just some quick examples of how we took all this information and applied it to our giant digital operation. So again, I oversaw a team of 9 staffers by the end of the campaign, and then at the beginning, keep in mind, it was just me. So over a 2-year period, we built this massive operation. All right, so in social media, I think this is kind of like the most obvious thing that people think of when they think of John, but we really, as a team, tried to incorporate his voice into our everyday content. So right off the bat, you can see that we would always try to reply to people and engage with people, liking comments, replying to comments, and we did this a lot with GIFs, and as you can see here, here's like a Family Guy GIF. John loves Family Guy, so we would try to use GIFs often. There's a photo of him and his wife Giselle. This was kind of a series we started where I'd be like, hey, can you just send me a photo of you guys on a date at dinner? And it became my Best Girl series. And then we've also got this little, this is the screenshot, the yellow is an Instagram post, but it was originally a Facebook post that we screenshotted and put on Instagram. And it performed really, really well. And it's kind of like this lo-fi thing. Like you can imagine John like screenshotting something from Facebook and then putting it on Instagram. Some more social, again, we use the Simpsons a lot. He loves showing off his family. We've got his young son, August, down there. always tweeting about, and keep in mind, like, for all the fun we had, we did do a lot of policy-related things. Here's John talking about the $15 minimum wage again, in his own words. And then finally, we've got a nice little meme trolling Dr. Oz, kind of setting up this contrast between the fact that Dr. Oz is a rich asshole and, he's not going to fight for regular working-class Pennsylvanians. And then finally, the screenshot in the middle is from our TikTok. We successfully kind of kicked off a TikTok. The one thing about that is, like, we knew that it would not be believable for John to be running his own TikTok, right? Like, dude should be in call time, talking to stakeholders, not on TikTok. So we very much had it as like a kind of like a team vibe. And everything that incorporated John was very dry, wry, and used a lot of emojis and things that made it distinctly his voice. And again, we've got some more John-isms and social content that really represents him. Got a photo of him in some crudité, a photo of him at Sheetz, his favorite convenience store, another Dr. Oz troll, and yeah, just really as we created content, trying to think of all the different ways we could incorporate his unique quirkiness. But it wasn't just social. We also really, had to put his voice in everything else as well. So here are two examples of fundraising solicitations. The first one, that little screenshot of the Google search, that is our top performing email of all time. I wrote it shortly after we launched the campaign, and I swear every time we sent out this email to our list, we would raise like $20,000. And I think a lot of times in American fundraising, you get a text or email and it's like, if you don't donate before midnight, Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer are going to die. And so we consciously took a very different approach to our fundraising program. This email is just a story. It's just a story in John's voice explaining why he has tattoos and how much he loves his community and his family. And then I just had a fundraising ask at the very bottom of the email. And that was really powerful and potent to donors and supporters. And then we've also got a screenshot of a fundraising text. Again, you can just see by the way the copy is written. It's very, very written in John's voice. We've got an emoji. We've got some ampersands. So very John. And then just some more fundraising content. We never shied away from using GIFs and having a little fun in our emails. Here's another successful email featuring everyone's favorite white nationalist, Tucker Carlson. And then on the right is a paid Facebook ad. And so just a reminder to, in all your paid media as well, you want to make sure that you're also consistent with the brand. We had this fun little Facebook is the worst direct donate ad that did very well for us. Okay, and then finally, you want to make sure that your unique voice is in your organizing work as well. So here's a screenshot of a a recruitment email for a GOTV rally with President Obama. And instead of sending like a cookie cutter, like, come to this rally at this time, I had my team write a unique email from John, making it sound really personal and inviting you to come hang out with Obama. And then on the right, we've got a voter ID text from a dog. You may laugh, but we did a lot of testing, and our dog voter ID texts had a double contact rate as our generic from John texts. So, if you guys are looking to win a province, maybe you just need an animal of some sort. I don't know. Yeah. So, okay, so you've got the candidate's voice. You have a great grasp over how you want to sound. You have your style guide. You know how you want to incorporate the voice. How do you make it better? Let's go. You're going to want to look at the data and test things. Test things. Testing could be its own presentation in its own right, but I think sometimes when you're making content, you kind of get lost in the sauce and you forget to look at the data. My team used a tool called Sprout Social, and every week we pulled a report, and we looked at what content was performing well, what content was not performing well. But if you don't have access to those resources, you can also use the native analytics that are on these social media platforms. Right here you can see my own dismal Twitter analytics report recently, and also we've got a screenshot of what the back end of Instagram analytics looks like. And of course, ActBlue, which I don't think exists in Canada, but it's how we process online donations. So whenever you can, set up A/B tests, look at the data, look at what's working and what's not, because that will give you a clearer path to defining your candidate's voice. Just some more A/B testing notes. And then what I will also add is, I think on Facebook especially, and these different platforms, there are a lot of native options that they're playing around with. So on Facebook, for example, we started testing our titles on videos. And that became really important, especially as John was recovering from his stroke. He had a health crisis last May. And we were trying to really show that he was really senatorial and he was still strong. And we tested a bunch of lines from kind of his comeback speeches. And this one line, I got knocked down, but I got back up, won like several times when we tested it, the titles on videos. And that was super important in giving an insight into how we should be talking about his recovery and how we should be presenting him going forward. And then, you want to bring the voice into your creative and design as well. Don't forget about that. We did not have, I had 9 staffers, but I did not have a graphic designer. And we kind of did that on purpose. And part of the reason is because part of John's voice is being very lo-fi and being scrappy and looking a little unpolished and also being funny. As you can see, there's a stay in line graphic because in America you need to stay in line at the polls or you can't vote. And it's just my favorite photo of John wearing shorts the day he met President Biden in a snowstorm with the stay in line. We talked about policy. This is John's 5-point policy to hold Washington accountable. And instead of like a boring infographic, we tried to use some emojis. We tried to keep the language very, very short and concise. And then finally, in our videos, we produced over 300 videos in-house on our team. And in every video, we tried to incorporate a little humor, make it really John. Here's one with John Lovett from Pod Save America. He came into our HQ and filmed a couple of videos for us. And as you can see, we use some, this is just a screenshot, I'm not going to play it, but we used emojis and we had this fun little Dr. Oz cutout. And yeah, you just want to make sure that that is also incorporated into your creative. And you might be thinking like, oh, that's really hard. No, it's not hard. You don't need a graphic designer to have the most polished, perfect graphics. Like, no one's gonna win an election because of their graphic design skills, right? So here are some examples of the creative that we used throughout the campaign. Right off the bat, a lot of it was just GIFs and memes from the internet already. We never had to explain what a meme was to John Fetterman. He would suggest them himself. So, we've got these GIFs. This, I guess that Chevy Chase meme is from, I don't even know what that's from. That predates me. If anyone gets that reference, good for you. And we got some Simpsons. The far right, the Wegners, the little circle, that is a sticker that one of my staffers designed on Canva in like 5 minutes, and it ended up raising us $50,000 overnight. So just really simple stuff. The little notes screenshot, I literally made on my phone on notes, And we also relied a lot on volunteer capacity for graphics. So the large graphic in the middle about voting, one of our volunteers, Rose from Philadelphia, she had this cute style and she loved making graphics for us. And it was just a way to get volunteers engaged with the campaign, but also, communicate our values. Like, we weren't fancy, we incorporated people at every step of the way of the campaign. And I think that all made it very successful. So we won Pennsylvania, yay. And yeah, I think that it was a wild ride. There's a lot of things in American politics that we get right, and there's a lot we get wrong. And I feel so fortunate to have been a part of this campaign and to be here at the Broadbent Institute. So thank you very much. I hope this was informative to everyone and helpful in winning more power for progressives in Canada. So thank you.